I'm Pete Peterson of Dirt Rider Magazine. We're up here at round 6 of the Kenda AMA National Enduro Series. We're in Upton, Wyoming, and we came up here to race 2 bikes with 4 riders at 1 enduro. We took the Yamaha YZ250FX and a Yamaha YZ250 two-stroke that had been converted a little bit for off-road, and we had everything planned out to have these guys ride the bikes, and then it stormed last night, so it turned into a pretty muddy event.
I had a chance to ride 2 tests today. I rode the last 2 tests of the event. The first one I rode the FX, and then the last test I rode the YZ. And both bikes did an awesome job for me today, but I just felt a little bit more comfortable in the conditions today on the FX.
My name is Brian Elliott with AmPro Yamaha Racing. My pick was the Yamaha YZ250 two-stroke.
Rory Sullivan with motorsport.com. Today, 2 different bikes. I chose the YZ250FX.
For me personally, I picked the Yamaha YZ250FX 4-stroke as my bike that I preferred over the other one.
And the reason I picked the FX, I really liked how the motor worked in the slick conditions. It really felt like the bike was planted. And you know, I haven't been riding a lot, so you know, it really seems things kind of react slow. Not the bike was slow, by no means, it wasn't slow. It just some of the reactions, so that kind of helped me with my timing like that. And the YZ was, for me, I would need to have a little more time because it is really, you know, quick with the motor. I'd need to have a little bit of better response myself. And for me right now, and the conditions of the event, FX was my choice.
Today, I chose the YZ250FX because it felt like the center of gravity was lower on the bike, went through the corners a little bit better. Positioning into the corner, it just felt settled. Leaving the corner, felt like I was putting the traction to the ground. When I hopped on the 250 two-stroke YZ, it was a little more just spun up quicker. I had fun with it because I haven't ridden one lately, and FX was a better pick for me.
If I could see anything it did better is, you know, sometimes I'd get myself in a situation that I need to really turn or make a different direction on the trail. I was able to spin the bike really quickly and get the front end up. More or less, most time I got myself in trouble. Is when I could spin the bike, get the front end up to get it over an obstacle. That seemed to be a little bit better on the YZ side of it compared to the FX.
The biggest difference I saw in the turning between the YZ250 and the YZ250FX, my riding style of standing up and the YZ250 just seemed a little more nimble for that. And as we got into the low mirror, drier dirt, I felt like I was able to control the bike and steer it a little better, especially through some of the tight trees. You know, when you come into some of the ravines, man, it was really tight, and that two-stroke just seemed to pick its way through and really accelerate well out of the slower stops and just get going very quickly. So,
you know, where I felt the turning differences, you have the back pressure from a 4-stroke and then a 2-stroke, but today the race was quite slick. So I didn't really notice the back pressure as I would in maybe conditions with better traction. Just felt like I was able to get into the corner a little smoother and pick a throttle, and throttle response was better for me to X in the corner. So for my total corner speed, the FX was a better choice for me today.
So between the 2 bikes, traction on the 4-stroke, it's good all across the board. I mean, not to mention, you can just keep clicking through those gears, wide ratio transmission, and it works from tight to fast. Traction on the 2-stroke, you have to be a little bit more careful with it. You have to almost click up a gear, grab 3rd, you know, 2nd starting to spin. So you're having to concentrate a little bit more on making it work in today's conditions.
Between the 2 bikes, the FX got a lot better traction in the mud when you're trying to accelerate and through the corners. One thing I do appreciate about 2-strokes is when you're trying to go through the ruts, they don't seem to grab as much. So in a lot of ways, it was easier to slide through some ruts with the 2-stroke, but overall, I think I got a lot better traction out of the FX, especially just trying to get going over some of that really slippery stuff.
You know, the effect of the 2 suspensions of the bike, 4-stroke versus 2-strokes, and what I see really the difference is how a 2-stroke loads the rear shock much harder than a 4-stroke does, just because of the revs and stuff. But it being slick and stuff with that, again, the suspension with the FX was a little more planted just because of the 4-stroke characteristics and a little bit lower center of gravity. It just seemed to make the bike not quite as what I call bouncy around as the YZ was for my style.
So for me today, I felt on the 2-stroke with the fact that the 2-stroke winds up a little bit faster, it felt a little more unsettled in the suspension. It hit a couple bumps coming out of the corners. It just didn't feel like it wanted to settle in. With the FX, it was locking into the line that I planned on hitting and just pushing through those bumps a little bit better. So FX is my pick.
Regarding suspension between the 2 bikes, the FX was very plush, very planted, and just did everything I wanted it to do. The YZ250, it felt like sometimes it was a little more jittery and kind of bouncing me around a little bit more. So I definitely appreciate the smoother, softer ride of the FX. So there you have it. Out of the 4 riders, 3 of us like the FX, 1 of us like the 2-stroke. We're doing a feature story on this in Dirt Rider magazine, so watch for that in an upcoming issue. We really want to thank the National Enduro Promotions Group for letting us come up here and do this kind of crazy test in the middle of one of their enduros. We had a lot of fun, and if you haven't ridden an enduro, it's an incredible trail. Even when it rains, it's a fun trail, and everyone up here is having a great time. And we also want to thank Upton High School. They actually opened their doors to the Enduro Series, and it's really cool to have these facilities available.